We were just offered $18 million if we get rid of you.
You have a calm, steady perspective that comes from experience, not fear.
They made it. Long voyages, they made it. They made it because they supported each other, because they cared about each other. That's really the main reason they survived.
You remind people that leadership isn't a title, it's an obligation.
I published a very famous paper and I challenged a medical product. The company went down.
What I see is a curious mind who's looking for new ways of helping people.
All sapiens. And it has been proven scientifically, biologically. That's what we have to talk about to people.
Luck can be interpreted as being at the right time, at the right place, and be surrounded by the right people as a result of your own choices.
Dean of my own school went after me, and he took me to attorneys in California of the university. He said, oh my God, this guy has published a paper and you're going to get sued.
Where does that courage come from to work against the mainstream?
To follow your passion and to be sincere. Integrity is the name of the game.
You also have become not just a scientist, but a public voice.
More and more I study about Iran, I really realize the value of its culture. It's just really magnificent.
Freedom becomes more meaningful when someone has lived without it.
There is always something to be grateful for in life. I know that people have a hard time. Life is not easy, but at the same time, look at the good part of it. If you really look carefully, there is always something to be grateful for.
Welcome back. Today on Beyond the Summit, you're meeting someone whose work reaches far beyond the world of dentistry. Dr. Hassam Nowzari is a scientist, an educator, and a truth teller whose voice has impacted millions, not only in clinics and universities, but across cultures, languages, and generations. He trained in Europe, led one of the most respected periodontal programs in the world at USC, and spent decades studying connection between infection, bone, human biology, and long-term health. But his influence goes deeper than research papers. He's someone who stands up for honesty in a field full of trends. He's someone who believes in protecting the natural human body, not replacing it when it's convenient. And he's someone who has used his platform to speak openly about ethics, responsibility, and importance of telling the truth, even when it's not easy. What I appreciate about him is that he doesn't separate science from humanity. Whether you're interested in your health, your purpose, your longevity, or simply understanding people better, this conversation will give you something real to carry with you. Dr. Nowzari, welcome to Beyond the Summit.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your invitation. Glad to be here with you.
Wonderful. So when you look back at your childhood in Shiraz, what early experiences shaped the way you see people, health, and responsibility today?
In my childhood, I was inspired by people, like everybody, by family members, by friends. I think now I appreciate a lot the culture, the language, the civilization. I really do. And I realize how fantastic it is that I did not know when I was younger. I've not been in Iran for decades, and more I study about Iran, I really realize the value of its culture. It's just really magnificent. It has helped me a lot. And fortunately, I'm not bad with the language, so I can connect with the history, with classic literature. Let me tell you something. I'm not bad in French, but even in France, it's a beautiful language, really powerful language, but very much disconnected if it goes back to centuries ago. Not too many people can understand that. Even many kings in France, they were not speaking French the way we understand it today, only a few centuries ago. But in Iran, you can really connect with the literature, even if you go back about 1,000 years, like Shahnameh, for example, Hafiz and Omar Khayyam. These are all about 1,000 years, 800 years ago, 1,200 years ago. Razi, the same thing. People, they can connect with them. Even if you go to a village, a small village, you talk with a shepherd with no education, they can understand it, I promise you. I remember once at USC, I asked a few colleagues of mine that if they can recite a poem, anything, or just give me the name of a poet, they were really incapable. Extremely sophisticated professors. But back home, you can ask anybody to talk about just one or two poets. They can talk about 20 of them, and they can understand them. So there is something fascinating about that culture to me, and that's that connectivity, and that it didn't die. It didn't die. It still is alive. And
I
Yeah.
love it. That explains so much about the way you speak. So you've lived in different countries and different cultures, as you mentioned clearly. So when did you realize that you were building your identity across multiple worlds?
I love France. I would never be where I am if it wasn't for France. And I never paid for my education. And I love Belgium. The same thing. I never paid anything for my education. And I love that country. I really do. About 2 years ago, I went to Belgium and I had tears in my eyes. And I love Taiwan. I've done a lot in Taiwan. I have established an academy back there. I feel the same thing, really. That's basically, like you said, I've been in so many different countries with different cultures. And I benefited from that, really. And
Right.
that made me a person who is grateful. I'm very grateful. And just to be grateful, let's say in France, is not enough. Then you try to study a little bit more about the country, about people. The same thing about Belgium, the same thing about Taiwan, the same thing about the United States. I love this country as well. I love all these countries, I really do. Whether it's Iran, whether United States, France, or Belgium, or Taiwan.
What I see is a curious mind who's looking for uh, new ways of helping people. So what made you choose dentistry, not as a job, but as life's work?
Well, when I talk with people, it's more as a scientist. I have a PhD in biology and health sciences.
Right.
Periodontology is a skill. It made me skillful, if you want. But skill is not enough. Skill is not enough. Science is a little bit different. So what really helped me a lot was biology and evolution and microbiology, for example. Let me give you an example. When I realized that before me, the universe was functioning for billions of years. So I would be on this earth for a few decades. And then after me, it's going to continue for billions of years. And that really helped me to be grateful, to realize that life is really a gift. And I really feel that, I really know that because of that knowledge. And at the same time, I realize that from a biological point of view, we are not the children of our parents from biological point of view. We are the children of our population. Like, for example, you have a father and a mother, but you have two grandfathers and two grandmothers. And then if you go back, they become 8, and then they become 16, and they become 32. Exponentially goes up. So if you go back only 10 generations, 1,024 people have contributed to your formation. It's fascinating. 1,024 people. And we don't know that. We forget that, or we were never told. We always think, okay, I have a mother and a father, and then the grandfather, a grandmother, and that's it. Now, if you go back only 20 generations, only 20, it's not a lot. More than 1 million people could participate in your formation. That's why really we are the children of our population. And I became interested to find out more about that.
So I love it. The way you talk about it with a sense of purpose. You have had a long career filled with teaching, traveling, speaking, treating patients. How do you maintain your energy mentally and physically for so many years?
Because I do so many different things. That's why it doesn't make me tired. If I was doing just one thing, that would be awful, really. So I do so many different things, but they're not related to each other. And that has helped me a lot. And then there is 24 hours in a day. I'm disciplined, I think, and I'm organized.
So how about physical aspect of that? So mentally, I understand that, what you say, but physically, you need to keep your energy level high. How do you do that?
I do sport minimum 4 days a week, and each time
Wonderful.
about 2 hours. Yeah.
This is great. So you speak with so much clarity and strength. It's clear your energy isn't accidental. It's something you've built. Do you have any simple routines, morning, evening, or daily habits that help you stay sharp, grounded, and balanced?
Yeah, just to continue to
Apart
be,
from the exercise part that you mentioned.
yeah, to continue to be grateful. I mean, that really helps you a lot. And realize that we cannot live alone. We have to live with others. And life has given you different capacities, capabilities. You can be nasty or you can be kind. You can be good or bad, really. Yeah. You have the option. And let me give you an example. It's very interesting. That's a true story. In Alaska, wolves, they do have culture in biology. Wolf has culture, and
Right.
elephants have culture, or orca has culture. Culture, it means passing your knowledge without using your genes. It means you have to work hard, passing your knowledge to somebody else, to next generation, without using your genes, basically. Now, there is a wolf who is sick, cannot do anything, and it's really cold in winter. There is another wolf in the same family that travels for a day or two, hungry, thirsty, and ultimately finds a prey. It eats it, chews that prey, but doesn't digest it. It sends it inside its body, and something we cannot do. And then it comes back for a day or two to get to that sick wolf, and he's going to bring it up into his mouth, basically. So everything is done, basically. Chewing is done, but has not digested the food. It's fascinating, just to help that sick wolf. Examples like that, it really is just, there's so much to learn in nature. So answering your question, what I do, I just try to observe and to be grateful, and to go back to what I've learned from anthropology, from evolution, from biology, from microbiology.
Gratitude is the key. When you look at yourself today compared to yourself 20 or 30 years ago, what has changed in a way you see the world?
I love the world. I really do. I love life. I'm more and more in love with life. Well, that's the difference. I was in love. I'm more in love with life. I really do. I enjoy it very much. You know, you have to understand how fortunate you are to be on Earth. Let me give you an example from a statistical point of view. The possibility for you to be on Earth is 0.000, keep going, 1. That's the possibility of being on Earth. And we are going to be there for only for a few decades if you're lucky. And up to now, about 120 billion people, we think, have lived on Earth. 120 billion people. Currently, we are about 10 billion, let's say, 7, 8, 10 billion people. 110 other billion people, they're gone. They're not with us anymore. And billions of them lived only a day. Billions of them lived maybe only for 1 year. And billions of them really lived with lots of problems, sufferings, and everything. So hopefully we have to realize how fortunate we are. And let me give you another example. And you know, when a father and a mother, they are going to be together to give birth to their baby, basically, about 100 million spermatozoid leave father's body to meet one cell in mom's body, basically. And each of them, 100 million spermatozoid, each of them could give life to a different person. So if you're alive today, it means that that day or that night when your father and mother, they were together, you won a lottery. The chance of winning that lottery was 1 in 100 million. 1 in 100 million.
Right.
And it's yours. It could be a different person. Each cell would give life to a different person.
That's so powerful. You know, it's something we do not pay enough attention to be grateful for the opportunity that we are given to. I love that. So, yes, please.
Now, let's say that if your father and mother, they were not together on a Monday, they were together, let's say, on a Wednesday, you would not even participate in that lottery. So hopefully you realize what's just unbelievable, this gift of life, really.
Right. So as people grow older, what values do you think naturally change, and which one changed most for you?
To me, I'm more curious, I'm more active, I have more energy, really. More you learn, more you want to learn. You know, that's what's so nice about science, that when you answer a question, it generates 100 other questions. When you are closed-minded, you have the answer to all the questions. That's it. But in science, really, is the opposite. Like, for example, only a few decades ago, we believed that we have only one galaxy. Fascinating. Not too long ago, even our greatest scientists believed that. And then we started having some scientists like Georges Lemaitre in Belgium or Hubble here in California talking about lots of galaxies, the expansion of the universe. And then by itself, now we have to answer thousands of more questions that otherwise we would not be curious about. That's really the beauty of science. So going back to your question, what it has changed in me, I'm even more curious. I'm even more active. I have even more questions to answer.
Yeah, you've seen enough life to speak from a place of clarity, and people feel that. If you could speak to yourself 25 years ago, because I like your perspective, the way you're looking at world. So what advice would you give that young scientist knowing what you know today?
to follow your passion and to be sincere. Integrity is the name of the game. Really, integrity is the name of the game, and to be truthful.
I love it. It's simple but so powerful. Would you still choose the same direction for your life, or is there a path you see differently?
Well, I had to go to France. I didn't decide about that. But I was fortunate. I was lucky. And then I got accepted in Brussels. Again, I was fortunate, really. I mean, that I was fortunate, I have to say that. And then I got accepted here in California. And then I was going to go back to France to work. And there was a Danish scientist who just came to California, and he offered me a big position at the university, and I accepted. Now, if he had not come to that university and had not offered me, I would have been somewhere else, and I would never be a scientist. Yes, luck exists.
Is it fair to say that luck can be interpreted as being at the right time, at the right place, and be surrounded by the right people as a result of your own choices?
No, I do believe in luck, absolutely, but not in destiny. But luck, it's not pre-written, but luck exists. And I do believe in butterfly effect.
Can you explain more about butterfly effect?
Let's say, for example, one day you meet a person and that person forever changes your life. Forever. You do something else. Something so simple can absolutely changes your life. That's called butterfly effect. So don't think that that was a small event. You just heard something. You just met with a person. But just that meeting, just that hearing really can change your life forever. And that's called butterfly effect. And you would be fortunate to be exposed to something like that. Because what would happen if you had not? Let's say, for example, if I had not accepted, it was not accepted in France, what would happen to me? Really, I mean that the same thing, if I had not gone to Brussels, really, what would have happened to me? If that scientist, the Danish scientist, had not offered the job to me, maybe I would be a simple practitioner. I would have a little office, maybe in south of France, and be happy going to the beach and a good practitioner. It's really that simple. That's called butterfly effect.
So, at that being said, you have someone who connects biology with humanity and science with ethics. What life experience pushed you in that direction?
I was living by myself since I was 14 or 15. And when I was to France, I was really by myself. Brussels, I was really by myself. I remember, I never forget that. When I got accepted, I was very excited. I took taxi from Paris to go to Brussels. I made a deal with the taxi driver. We got to Brussels. Brussels is really cold city, and it was foggy. And the taxi driver told me, that's your university. I got out and he left. He went back to Paris. And I was saying to myself, what I'm doing here? And then I started to walk, going here and there, try to find an apartment, try to get ready really for that. So I think that going back, I realized that I have always been grateful and I'm not a whiner. And anyhow, there was nobody to listen to me. So I never learned to whine. And that independence maybe is the key. The fact that nobody was there to listen to me anyhow, I had no other option but to fight. And that's it, basically. So it worked for me.
You mentioned integrity. So was there a point where you realized science alone wasn't enough without truth and integrity?
Absolutely. I can give you an example. I published a very famous paper and I challenged a medical product. And the company went down, if I'm not wrong, more than $1 billion. And their share was just shooting down. And I got so many wonderful feedback from all over the world, from Italy, from Portugal, from France. People, they were saying, oh, it's just wonderful that university people are not dead, that you dare to publish, heavyweight papers, this and that. But surprisingly, the dean of my own school went after me. And he took me to attorneys in California of the university. He said, oh my God, this guy has published a paper and we are going to get sued. We are going to be destroyed. It's just unbelievable. And the reason was that he was promised money. That's what I heard from his associate dean. An associate dean was a friend of mine. And he told me, Hassam, be very careful. We were just offered $18 million if we get rid of you. Yeah, I mean that I have experienced that a lot. And that's not the first time. I published another paper about a graft material. And so many other people went after me. Some of them professors of universities, because they do get grants from the company. And the company is going to tell them, look, you're going to write a letter to challenge his paper. But we are not going to get involved because people, they don't appreciate if a company goes after a researcher. I have seen it a lot. And I remember I have a very good, very famous scientist from Gothenburg. He had the same experience, and he was a professor of the government in Gothenburg because it's not private. And he called me, he told me, "Son, be careful. They went after me and they really mean business. Be very careful." And I was so careful for a while. Even when I was walking outside my house, I was so careful. So I have seen it all the time. So don't think that, pharmaceutical companies are huge. They're making lots of money and they have lots of awful products in the market. And quite often, professors are happy with their position. You can publish whatever you want. Nobody really cares about that. As long as you publish something positive, you can keep your job. As long as you publish something positive, or even manipulation happens all the time in research, you can continue to get your grant. You keep your job. That's really what it is. You would be surprised if I tell you that integrity is not that dominant at our universities or research centers.
So I love it. So where does that courage come from to work against the mainstream, by telling the truth?
I remember I was very, very young, a child, and I was going with my grandmother to Sadi, a great poet. And I was so inspired by him, even if I was like 6 or 7. In one of his poems, he's talking about the fact that you should not hurt even an ant, because it has life and enjoys life. Something like that. I was so much touched, really. And I remember I promised myself never to hurt any animal, including ants, or even smaller than that. I think it really goes back to what I talked to you at the beginning of the program. I never appreciated the Iranian civilization or culture, but it was getting into me during my childhood by being exposed to that through my grandfather or grandmother. And it goes back to my childhood. That's why I told you before that even if I've not been there for decades, more and more I really appreciate the value of that amazing culture.
I love it. I love it. When you look at the world today, with all its noise, speed, and pressure, what worries you the most about the way humans are living?
Humans are wonderful people. We have been on Earth for about 100,000 years, Homo sapiens sapiens. And our direct ancestors, about 300,000 years ago, that we call them Homo sapiens archaic. They're not even us. So when we talk about you and I, or people watching us, we have been around for about 100,000 years. Now, when our ancestors left Africa, they were about 500 to 2,000. That's our estimation. Not less than 500, not more than 2,000. And they made it. Ice Age, they made it. Long voyages, they made it. They made it because they supported each other, because they cared about each other. That's really the main reason they survived. And then together, they created a language we believe about 50,000 years ago or 70,000 years ago. So finally, they could communicate with each other. And that's our story. The story of humanity is really about caring about each other. And it still is the same. Still, we have not changed. I have lots of faith in humans. Like, for example, in New York, if you have a person killing another person, everybody's going to talk about that. Everybody, for days. But in the same city, you have thousands of people that are working 2, 3 different shifts just to make sure that their family members, they can go to university. They can have a good life. And we never see that. The same thing in Paris, the same thing in London, the same thing in Tehran, the same thing in Los Angeles. If you have an accident, everybody's going to talk about that. But we forget about thousands of people that are so wonderful. Good fathers, good mothers, good cousins, good brothers, good sisters. Really, it's just, so hopefully my hope is that we are going to see the good part of the humanity. Homo sapiens sapiens. And there are 3 words, Homo sapiens sapiens. This last one really is about our race. So if I tell you what's your race, you are not Aryan, or you're not from the Richard the Great. I'm from the race of this and that. No, there is only one race, and that's sapiens. We are all sapiens, and it has been proven scientifically, biologically. That's what we have to talk about to people. But we fall in love with the color of the skin because somebody is black, somebody is not black. We think that's the race. And even today, if you go to the airport, they ask you, what's your race? Isn't that sad? It's really tragic. Well, I'm telling you from biological point of view, from scientific point of view, there's only one race. So I think that humans are good, but we also have to provide more and more information to neutralize really bad people. But the number of good people is way more than bad people. That's the good news.
I love the way you describe, our human races. Is there anything that worries you the most about the way humans are living today?
When you look at our leaders, really, you realize that they're not educated. Far from that.
You mean the political systems?
Exactly. Yeah. Whether left or right, I mean, really doesn't matter. They have no education. I know many of them as patients. When you talk to many of them, you realize that the level of education is so low. They know nothing about history. They know nothing about geography. And you really have to know geography. You really have to know history. You really have to speak at least 2, 3 languages to better understand. You have to go to different countries. And you see the lack of knowledge. Lack of knowledge is really a big problem with our politicians.
Yeah, I see that. Thank you. So you have a calm, steady perspective that comes from experience, not fear. I really love that. So you also have become not just a scientist, but a public voice. Why did you feel the need to speak openly about society and truth?
Because I appreciate life. And if you do appreciate life, if you realize what a big gift it is given to you, then you have to give it back. You have to give it back, and you cannot be just egoist. And at the same time, I don't get intimidated. Never, even during childhood. And I told you, I've been living by myself for forever, practically. That's something about me. I never, ever get intimidated. And I really don't care about somebody giving me money to shut my mouth. It really doesn't mean anything to me. I really enjoy life. And I enjoy life the way I should, as a person who is grateful. And I just want to tell you something else, that there is always something to be grateful for in life. I know that people have hard time. Life is not easy, but at the same time, look at the good part of it. If you really look carefully, there is always something to be grateful for. And anyhow, you're not going to be on Earth for more than a few decades if you're lucky. So
Right. I love it. It takes courage to step into that space, especially when you don't have to. You often talk about the cost of silence. What taught you that silence can be more dangerous than speaking up?
suffering of people, like in medicine, we do so many unnecessary treatments. And how is it possible? It's unbelievable. Like injecting people with something which is harmful, giving medication to people that you do know is harmful, doing surgical procedures that you do know is harmful, and it's happening routinely. Believe me, don't think that it happens here and there. It happens all the time, all the time. So, and that's why you can always buy people. Prices are different. You can always buy people. And pharmaceutical companies, they know that. So me as a practitioner or scientist, I could not just sit there and observe that, of course, for the same reason I just explained to you.
Adorable. So, that being said, what responsibility do experts, doctors, scientists, educators have in today's world of misinformation?
At our universities, we teach our doctors to grow within a protocol. So they fly from east to west of that protocol, but they don't dare to get out of it. That's the problem that we have. Let me give you an example during COVID-19. During COVID-19, they would watch TV. The professors, they would see, okay, CDC said that, or that guy Fauci said that. I'm going to repeat that. It's safe. Why? Because we don't teach critical thinking at our universities. We teach our doctors to fly within the protocol. To fly, you fly, but within the protocol. You don't get out of it. To get out of it, you really need to understand what critical thinking is. And we don't teach that. We teach our students to become skillful. So you become a good surgeon, you become a good pilot, you become a good lawyer, but it doesn't mean that you're a good thinker.
So you remind people that leadership isn't a title, it's an obligation. And I really love the way you explain that. When you think about health now, in a whole life sense, what does it mean to you?
That it should not be a business, and it is a business now. It should not be a business.
It has
So,
been commercialized. Yes, I agree.
and we all know that. We all know that. But what happens when our students, they graduate? They have millions of dollars of debt. So what do? They cheat. Why? Because you have to pay it back. So our universities are really bankers. They are not universities anymore. They are bankers. And they make it easy for you. You're 18, 19, you got accepted. They tell you, don't worry about that. We are going to pay for you. But once you graduate, if you do have a job, you have to pay it back. And if you are in a health business, you have been studying for many years and you have lots of debt to pay back. And then you would like to get married. You would like to have a fancy car. You would like to have a fancy office in a fancy neighborhood, fancy home. So what do? You cheat. You join the club. You join the club. Again, and as I said, is always the easiest way to do it is just to follow the current. If somebody is doing this kind of, let's say, surgical procedure, you do it the same. So everybody's doing it. If you do know that this medication is harmful, you say, well, but everybody's using it. That's the problem. It's becoming a business, but at the same time, we leave no other option for many of our graduates.
It's very unfortunate to hear that. You speak about health like it's a foundation for everything else. And it is very true. Without health, everything else is meaningless, in my opinion. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's why I'm saying that we have to be there for each other. And you said it absolutely right. Look, you hurt your finger, it like ruins your day. Just think about that. Only by hurting your finger. Health is so important. What can we do if we are not healthy? Nothing really.
Right. So the existence of my podcast is based on health that fuels wealth that can be interpreted as financial independence. And both, unlock freedom. And everyone's definition of freedom is different. So, but they are integrated and they're interrelated, so in a way that we cannot separate it. And the foundation, in my opinion, is health. It sounds like your definition has matured with your journey. You have lived under different systems and freedoms. How has your idea of freedom changed over the years?
Freedom needs knowledge because easily you can fool people. So it has to go together, basically. For example, in France, they are becoming also victim of this stuff that we just talked about. The same thing with Belgium. And we have to remember, these countries that have contributed a lot to civilization. But now, when you look at France, it's not the same as it was a few decades ago. So that's something to be worried about. So it has to come with knowledge, really. Freedom by itself is not enough. We can get fooled easily, really, especially because of the media. We don't think anymore. We don't teach critical thinking. All this stuff, really. If you like to enjoy life, it has to come with knowledge.
Yeah, I love it. So freedom becomes more meaningful when someone has lived without it. At this stage of life, what does real wealth look like to you?
That live day by day and don't think that everything is granted. You never know. You really never know. You never know. Live day by day and assume that today is your last day. And don't forget that life is extremely precious. So hopefully you're going to realize that, it's fascinating, it's unbelievable. We have about 94 elements, like oxygen, carbon, stuff like that. Maybe more, but some of the elements are not stable. So let's say 94. Some of these elements are the result of big galaxies going into each other to generate enough force to have nucleosynthesis. Otherwise, those elements would not be born. And it happened. It happened billions of years ago. And then these elements, they started a journey. And finally, about 4.6 billion years ago, they got together. Where we call it Earth. Just when you think about that, imagine billions of years ago, like about 5 billion years ago, carbon was born, not before that. About 13 billion years ago, hydrogen was born, not before that. And then these elements, they start the journey in our universe, which is so huge, it's beyond your imagination. And ultimately, they got together. They got together, and then about 4.6 billion years ago, we have our Earth, and about 4 billion years ago, finally, we have the primitive forms of life. And then 4 billion years after that, we have you. That's really the value of your existence.
Okay. So living the life to its fullest is the real definition of wealth for you, day by day, and the gift of life, to appreciate it.
Absolutely. Okay. I mean, that every time you breathe this oxygen, you have to realize that galaxies that had to go into each other for millions of years to finally give birth to this element. And oxygen, we also believe, was born about 5 billion years ago. So just that oxygen, if you realize what it took for oxygen to be born. And it had to be born for you to be there.
Beautiful. So for young people watching, students, new scientists, young Iranians, because I know you talk a lot about Iran, young thinkers, what is the one message you like to give them to carry into their future?
Love, really, the love for everything you do. Or fall in love with everything you do. Otherwise, quit. Just stop it, really. It's not worth it. And do it for yourself. And self-esteem, self-respect. If you do respect yourself, you will respect everybody else. And I said that before, I will repeat it one more time. Integrity. Be truthful.
Thank you for sharing that. So when everything is said and done, what do you want your life to stand for?
Me, I really don't care about what people think about me.
Do you want to leave any legacy?
No, not
I
really.
love it. Very simple and straightforward. Okay, if this conversation touches even one person, what do you hope changes for them?
Passion. To become passionate about what they do and to be grateful. There is always something to be grateful for.
Thank you, Dr. Nozari. Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing your time and your story and your wisdom with us today. I'm grateful for your honesty and clarity and the depth you brought to this conversation. And to everyone watching or listening, thank you for joining us. If
Thank you
this
so much.
episode gave you something meaningful, take a moment to subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with someone who would appreciate it. That's how we grow this community and keep bringing conversation like this to you. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep moving toward your own summit.